We begin today in Iraq, where an al-Qaeda affiliate took credit for a series of bombings. The blast resulted in at least 60 dead on the 10-year anniversary of the Iraq War. It's a war that killed nearly 5,000 U.S. soldiers, hundreds of thousands of Iraqis, and estimated to cost trillions of dollars. The Bush administration told the public Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. Turns out that wasn't the case, but from the beginning, there were a few voices against waging a war in Iraq, among them former Congressman Dennis Kucinich. If you can recall, he called for the impeachment of President George Bush and Dick Cheney.
Lies are weapons of mass destruction. Lies are also an impeachable offense.
Oh, this isn't golf. You don't get a do-over.
A resolution, articles of impeachment of George Bush, President of the United States. Go to Kucinich.us and sign the impeachment petition.
Well, the former congressman joins us now in our studio as we reflect on the past decade. Mr. Kucinich, great to have you here. So you have consistently been a vocal critic of the Iraq War, and looking back on the past 10 years, what's going through your mind?
More than what goes through my mind, I can feel this in my heart. I'm heartsick over the loss of our troops, over the deaths of perhaps as many as 1 million innocent Iraqis, the destruction of that country, the destruction of our own priorities here at home, the rising debt, borrowing money to wage a war. This thing has been a nightmare, and frankly, those who made the decisions to take us there have not yet been held accountable.
Yeah, and I want to bring this up. Yesterday, I spoke to former Alaska Senator Mike Gravel, and here's what he said.
Well, our entire institutions, the media, the Congress, the White House, all failed the American people.
Now, I know that you, from the very beginning, were outspoken about this war, and I want to ask, should have there been more critical voices? Should have there been alarm bells going off, whether it be from within the government or from members of the media?
Well, we knew, and I say we, myself, and members of Congress knew back in October of 2002 that the call for war was not fact-based. People in the media knew that too, but everyone got pulled into this tremendous movement towards war. Make no mistake about it, the president and members of his administration involved in the decision-making have the first responsibility here. Members of Congress in top positions have responsibility as well. But we have to move to a place in America where we reconcile the events of the last 10 years against the fact that it was not based on truth. That's horrendous when you think about the consequences. Lying to take a country to war, it is mind-boggling when you think of the impact this lie has had.
You say that many people did know about the truth.
Absolutely.
Yet we didn't hear much warning. We didn't see as much resistance. How do you think that's able to happen? Well,
my experience in Congress was that the minute that you start to beat the drums for war, war has kind of a hypnotic, magnetic effect. Maybe it excites the lower limbic system or something, but people just get drawn into it. They don't think anymore. It becomes an emotional thing. And people stop thinking. And as a result, we sent our troops over there. As a result, we ended up with thousands of them dying, many of them coming back, those who survived with PTSD. And we laid Iraq waste to waste. All these people killed and injured, the country destroyed, oil being one of the underlying things that was involved here. Those who made the decision that took us there, again, they have to be held accountable, which is why I have suggested a whole new process that could bring people forward in public, get them to confess to their misdeeds, and give our country a chance to lift this scourge of a war based on lie from our conscience.
Do you think that would ever really happen?
It needs to. America can't live a lie. If the truth sets us free, then we must stand upon the truth to free ourselves from the lies that took us into the Iraq War. And the only way you can do that is through a public process, where those who made the decisions, the President, the Vice President, the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Defense, and all the people involved in those decisions are brought forward, where they're subject to public questioning, where there's consequences if they lie. But we need to move past Iraq But we can't do it as long as we're fixed there, almost in amber, like a specimen, in time and space, because of lies. And the lies are devastating to our country, because there's still many Americans who have no idea that we did not have to attack Iraq.
Now, you just mentioned oil a moment ago, and there are many people that believe that we went to Iraq for oil. Bush wanted to bring free markets to Iraq, and that meant getting rid of these state-owned operations. But want to bring up these figures. It has to do with China, and it turns out that Chinese control of Iraqi oil production today is at 50%, and by 2035, it's expected to be 80%. So what's surprising is that we're not getting much oil. The Chinese are the ones with the big oil companies there. Why is that?
Well, first of all, China was able to get that oil without having to send a single soldier. They capitalized on America's miscalculation. Whether or not the thought was that the new government would just cave into the U.S., there was clearly a calculation that our movement over there was going to benefit our access to oil, and cheap oil, I might add. More is a tragedy. And we have to deal with this, not based on the decisions that China made. You know what's interesting about that? We borrowed money from China to prosecute that war. Think about it. This thing is such a compounded tragedy on so many levels that we borrowed money from China, and we were so in debt. And China, their economy is growing, and ours is tanking, and the war is one of the reasons. There's a line in our Christian Bible that says, "That which is crooked cannot be made straight." Everything about the Iraq war is crooked, and it cannot be made straight until we have a process of truth and reconciliation here in the United States, much the same way that South Africa had to free itself of the lies that brought it to apartheid and the subjugation of a whole group of people.
Now, you have also been very outspoken against some of the tactics that have been used in this war, among them the use of torture and rendition. Right now at Guantanamo Bay, there's this big hunger strike that's going on among the detainees there. Do you still believe that base should be shut down, such as President Obama promised?
Well, absolutely. It's extra-constitutional. One of the problems that came pursuant to the war is that some of the most cherished constitutional protections that involve everyone who the United States comes into contact with basically set aside. Suddenly, you could put people in secret prisons, or you could imprison them without attorneys, or you could subject them to torture, and it was beyond the reach of any civil authority here. And that set the stage for drone policies, which are can be used to attack American citizens abroad. We have departed from our constitutional tradition, and anytime you do that, you're looking for real trouble.
Now, Congressman, we don't have that much time, but I do want to ask you, because there was a press conference today between the president and Benjamin Netanyahu, and do you fear that the U.S. is moving closer to war with Iran? Will Iran be the next Iraq?
No, I don't think we're headed towards a war with Iran. Iran has the ability to defend itself, and there would be a catastrophe if there was a nuclear strike on Iran because of the effect of the fallout across a subcontinent, but there would also be a catastrophe because Iran has an ability to retaliate, and the retaliation would be against Israel. We have to recognize that we're in a new era which requires us to settle our differences without killing each other and without threatening mass destruction against one nation against another. And so we have to use diplomacy with Iran. We have to build a relationship there, and it has to be based on trust. The only way we can do that is communicate frequently. And we haven't done that yet, but we need to.
Mr. Kucinich, really great to have you on today. Unfortunately, we are out of time, but that was a former Ohio Congressman, Dennis Kucinich.